Good morning, guys. So, today we are going to talk about 64-bit computing. So, what does 64-bit computing mean? Faster processing, more memory? Let's jump in and see what it is. So, technically, a 64-bit computing means 64-bit processor, 64-bit OS, and 16 exabytes of RAM. So we can accommodate up to 16 exabytes of RAM. So that's huge, and all the apps are made for 64-bit processing. So that's cool. So why does we need a 64-bit computing? So let's see what's the difference between a 32-bit computing and 64-bit computing. So mathematically, if you see a 32-bit processor, so 2 power 32, which is a 4 GB of addressable memory, that means 4 GB of RAM. So for any 32-bit processor, the maximum addressable memory is 4 GB. So in PC era, when we had this limitation of 4 GB for any processors, 4 GB of RAM for any processors, most of these applications are trying to use more memory, like Adobe's Photoshop or games which need high graphics are using most of its memory, and we try to have more memory into our computer. So that's the reason why we moved from 32-bit to 64-bit processor. So theoretically, a 64-bit processor can have a 16 exabytes of addressable memory. 2 power 64 is like 16 exabytes, so that equals 17.1 billion gigabytes. So that's incredibly huge, but we don't need that much RAM as of now, but we may need in future. We don't know about that. So mathematically these are the values. So let's jump on to the mobile processors. So 90% of the mobile processors are ARM based now. So ARM ARM Holding is a company which creates these architectures, uh, new architectures with the name of ARM. So what does ARM do, and why 90% of the mobile processors use ARM? Because it is highly efficient in memory consumption. Like it uses very less battery, uh, very less battery uh, compared to another x86 processors which we use in desktops or and any other PCs. So how does it manage to use less battery? So it uses reduced instruction set architecture, that is RISC architecture, which is highly efficient in energy terms compared to x86 or other architectures which are used in desktop class computing. And it has a system on chip, so SoC, which has memory and other things onto the chip, which has faster access to the processors, so that it uses as much less battery as possible. So these are some of the crucial benefits of ARM's architecture. That's the reason why most of the mobile processor makers use ARM's architecture in making their processors. So, so, so coming to 64-bit processing, until 2011, ARM used to release 32-bit architectures, but for the first time in 2011, ARM introduced something called ARM V8, which is a 64-bit processor. So that's first of its kind from ARM. So what are the key benefits of ARM V8? So it has something called dual execution modes, which means it can switch between 32-bit processing and 64-bit processing just like that. Those execution modes are called ARC32 and ARC64. So taking an example, iPhone 5s has a 64-bit process, but all the apps which are built for 32-bit processing still run in iPhone 5s. This is the key point for that, dual execution modes. So nextly, so we have double general purpose registers. What does that mean? We have more registers, so we can have more data stored in these registers, so we need not to go and jump into RAM and get the data and do things. So we have faster execution cycles here. And there is something called special crypto space, which means there is a memory space on the chip where you can save encrypted data or cryptic data. And that's a key thing. Apple A7 use that space to store the Touch ID information, that is the fingerprint information which they take from your device. So they store in this memory, and this is on the chip, which means nothing else can access this data apart from this single processor, and that is built-in encrypted. So these architectures have the capabilities of built-in encryption to do all these things. That's incredible thing for process like A7. So that's about ARM v8. So why mobile is moving to 64-bit? Definitely the advantages are like having more processing capabilities and other things, but one point which we can talk about is unified architectures for PCs and mobiles. So what does it mean? So Windows recently released Windows RT, Windows on ARM. That is first time Windows was made to run on ARM. Even though that is 32-bit processor, but moving into energy efficient architectures is a key thing for Windows. And Apple's 64-bit ARM architecture, both these seem to go into a single direction of using ARM's 64-bit and 32-bit processors. So for energy efficiency, for sure, that is one point. But what that can lead to? So that can lead to having a unified architecture for both the PCs, tablets and smartphones. That means a unified OS built for desktop as well as for mobile. That is an incredible thing, and having such a single OS with visual difference between the desktop and the mobile is a key factor, and that's a key factor for the developers and for the consumers too. So for the developers, they can make apps for one platform, and that can be run on desktop, tablet and smartphones, and they can earn money from all the three platforms. That's cool thing, right? And for consumers, they can have data stored in different devices, and all the architectures are same, and everything they see in the desktop, mobile and tablets, everything gets similar, and that's a cool thing. So that's all about it today for 64-bit computing. Thank you guys. I'm Shirish again. Post if you have any questions down in this link. Bye bye.